gentle, Scoob.
Oh my God, Archie!
Yes.
You're from the Archie comics!
Yes, I am.
Oh my God! You even revealed your voice!
I actually have a voice. In the comics, I don't have a voice.
Oh!
How many people in that one call?
How many steps do you have to
10
eat
people, I think.
before you make your
I got
skin
zero.
God!
too much and you'll get sick?
I'm from the Archie comics. I'm the most powerful version of Sonic.
Some
Oh my God! You have the ult or something?
What?
Someone grab right now.
Be gentle, Scoob.
Like
The blue blur!
Yes, I am a blue blur.
The blue blur!
yep, the blooper is here. Oh my God.
Oh my God!
Wait.
Want to see me destroy the Earth in a second? Yeah, I'll just.
Is
Would Vsauce or Archie Sonic win?
What?
Holy
Better
crap,
hear
I
you
got
that
this
time.
Sonic stream something. Where's that?
How many shrimps do you have to eat before you make
Look at that, we're featured in the stream!
too much and you'll get sick? Shrimps are pretty.
Dude, what the hell is going on?
Look at that, there's 3 people right now because many people joined Hangouts!
AFK.
That's fucking crazy!
23
Wow.
people joined the Hangouts.
No!
That is crazy!
No more
What the heck?
Oh my God, Mighty White!
Bruh.
Mighty, friggin' speak! Speak now!
He's dead.
This is.
Everybody questioning might be gentle, Scoob.
He like has no voice!
Oh my
This is.
God, Sonic is
Speak, bitch!
I am the Archie Sonic. All calm down to my living.
Be gentle, Scoob.
Wait a minute, it's not Zoom?
Wait.
No! No!
Oh my god.
Oh my God! Who likes Sonic Boom? That sucks ass! No! No! Fuck!
Hey guys, we gotta acknowledge the roleplay chat. Say hi.
Koi.
You know,
There.
Hi, roleplay chat. You all suck.
Don't be mean to won't play that.
Yeah, you don't suck. I was just kidding. Just pedal beer to
my
my
God.
The Archie Sonic. I am the Archie Sonic. Fear me.
Archie, where's Archie Tails?
No.
Archie Tails. I don't know where Archie Tails is. I really do not know. I left on a
Wait,
mission.
what?
You need to know.
You don't know your own friend!
Archie Chose is not here.
Chat, please don't arrest me for saying that.
No!
Guys, I think the chat called FBI on me.
oh, the chat's over, I think.
FBI, open up.
Oh, yeah, no, the chat's over. It's crap.
Oh my God.
Right.
Oh my God, it's really me.
Cream the Rabbit, subscribe to your channel.
I am eating sugar.
I have like 161 subscribers.
Congrats on 2.
Yeah, I have 161 subscribers.
Father, yeah, fed me in 3 days. Of course I'm eating sugar.
Wait, what?
I got really triggered because I got the least subscribers.
Okay, how many subscribers do I
Who
have?
got the least subscribers? Because I don't care.
I got the least. Wait, no, I don't.
Archie.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, how many subscribers you guys have? Because I only have 161.
I only have 55.
You're roasted! Oh my God!
I really don't care if I don't.
I'm calling the bully hunters on you guys.
I have 200 subscribers. Yeah.
Oh God! Archie, how many subscribers you have?
200.
Well,
Damn!
4 people left.
much.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
man.
some random people on the Hangouts call our will see me.
Thank you all.
Wait a second. There's another YouTube channel that has its.
This is a milestone. I thought I'd never hit 200 in like a lifetime.
I can't believe you guys are revealing your voices.
Congratulations for 200 subscribers, Archie.
Why does Linux sound
How
so
many peeps
cute?
are in here anyway?
What?
Oh my god.
Linux sounds so cute. What?
You people are not okay.
Oh my god.
I have not been ping.
What the heck is with the Sonic recolors?
I am the only real Sonic on here. I am the only real Sonic that
No,
is.
you're not,
Oh, no.
Archie.
Huh?
You're the real Sonic. The yellow one over there is the red color.
Yeah, Ted's back online.
I'm from the comic.
The
The
yellow
comic
one.
started as the game started.
I'm
I am the real
I
Sonic.
like Vortex.
Oh, excuse my language. I'm a freaking Greek color.
Back online.
So many hedgehogs. So many hedgehogs.
Hedgehog edition.
No.
I'm a
Why are
hedgehog.
hedgehogs so famous in roleplays?
Because I'm a hedgehog and they all want to be me.
5,
Congrats.
God, they got recolors.
7.
Except for Amy, Silver, Shadow. They're not recolors, they're real things.
7
Shadow's a
Why
voice
are
straight
you
girls.
color? I don't think so.
Shadow is a
I'm so sure. Oh my god.
So loud. Oh my god.
200 subscribers.
Hey
I
guys,
think
say
that we
I
are
am your dad for
God.
Subscribers. This is gonna be a freaking.
What an idiot. Oh my god.
We don't eat anymore. We don't eat anymore.
Oh my god.
Cause my dad is broke. We don't eat anymore. What was that?
Hold on. Oh, I need to
Oh
put it
my
in chat.
god.
Cause my dad is broke.
I can type at the speed of light.
Next 7 boys and 3 girls.
What is this?
Boy, Queenie.
Boy.
I keep on hearing.
Boy.
Archie Sonic is in the house. Do not
Whose
mess
dad is
Hey,
broke?
boy.
Single punch.
Wait, is it
Mine
just
is.
Zach? Is it?
No.
Oh, RT has 204.
Oh my
Wait,
god.
what?
What's with the texting?
Wait, next one's in go to Christmas.
Aren't you guys glad it's Halloween?
Be
Yeah,
gentle.
yeah, I'm actually kind of glad.
Not even
It
after
gets tails out the
Because I
house.
waited for weeks.
I don't know
For
why.
it's finally here.
Miss my ears.
for
It
night.
gets tails out the house. Halloween
Not
gets
because I
tails
have
out the house.
surgery on the 29th.
How am I the only cat here? That doesn't make any sense.
Chill out. Don't get your tail in a knot.
I do it.
Somehow
That did not make any sense at all. I'm the only cat here. All of them are the hedgehog foxes and crap.
I got quills for a reason, boys.
Okay.
I do have a friend who is a cat.
Guys. God damn it.
There's more girls
Literally,
than
all of
boys.
these hedgehog foxes, armadillos and shit. Literally, look at all this.
I'm the fastest hedgehog.
I don't want it. I go with this.
What have I said?
I think the cats went extinct.
What have I called for?
Okay, everyone, that one now. Dab.
I
Dab
don't respond
one now.
anymore.
Yes, I do sound hype. Mecca, I do sound hype.
Be gentle, Scoot.
Ah,
You were still playing. Oh.
I'm the only sexy yellow here, and I'm trying to play with the cat.
No!
Dex,
No, he literally looks like Supersonic right now. But the quills are down.
You know what?
someone get me a comb. I need to go to the
yeah,
Oh, no.
I think we all.
Someone get me the quill
Ew,
comb.
calm down.
Or anyone.
My laugh is the last thing you hear
Oh my
before you
God.
die.
Someone get me a comb. I need to brush
I
my
want to
quills.
kill myself right now because there's literally no cat.
Someone get me the
No,
comb.
when I first read mine,
Yeah, I
I
have a
thought it
cat
said I'm the
anyway.
only sexy yellow Dodo.
No.
The only
You don't
sexy
know
yellow
nothing.
hedgehog here.
You don't
I
know
could
nothing.
turn supersonic right now, and then you wouldn't be classed as the only yellow hedgehog here.
Vortex.
Because I'd be in my super form.
Yes, I am the recolor.
Yeah, Vortex. What will your super form will be?
What?
Yeah, what color is your super form if you're yellow?
It's already yellow.
Yellow.
Right,
You won't be the sexiness yellowness of my super form because I get red eyes.
Like,
It's already yellow.
what is your super form gonna be? My quills will rise up.
I bet your super form will be blue.
My super form blue.
What? That'd be messed up.
Blue super form. Yellow base form and blue
Hey,
very super.
don't my makeup. Well,
Depressed supersonic.
I bet Vortex super form will be blue.
Dodo, I totally just had
Yeah. That'll be his super form.
Who did I hide? No, don't hide them.
Yeah.
No, I accidentally
Yes, Vortex. Vortex.
I accidentally just hit somebody in the chat.
Shout out to all the hedgehogs.
Yeah, shout out to us
Let me see
hedgehogs.
how many hedgehogs there are.
They'll have a hard time killing me. All I'd have to do is go ultra, destroy the planet, and you're all dead.
Oh shit.
Hashtag
Well, I'd rather destroy the planet. I'd rather destroy the planet than you.
Hashtag headshots for life.
By the way.
I can reach
Shout out to Hedgehog gets
and
educated.
just make it so you guys were never born. That's literally all I need to do.
Daddy Archie Sonic, please make me not born.
Sorry, I've already got. Sorry, I've already been classed as confirmed to be married to Sally.
Still, ooh.
No, wait.
well done.
Why do I exist?
Hangout.
Why? Do I
Jesus
exist?
Christ. Lily plays and more. Subscribe to your channel. Jesus Christ.
My channel is a complete failure. I don't know why.
I'm so sorry.
Everybody.
Shout out to all my Tuesday.
My hangout.
Shout out to all my hedgehog brethren.
No, Archery, no.
Oh my god, I wish there were more cats and hedgehogs.
Why is someone chatting in the
No.
other one?
Yeah.
Like,
Hedgehogs are taking over the world!
Now, mate, the hedgehogs aren't taking over the world. Just chill out, cat.
Hey guys, guess what? Cream X big to cat.
Oh
What
my
are you
god!
doing for that?
Is it cream with tail?
Yes. Yes.
Who am I going to for that?
Hey,
Why are you guys making fun of me for being a cat?
Hey, don't make fun of her for being a cat.
I don't care!
Chill
I
out.
make fun of the cat!
yeah,
Are you just
Oh my god! Please, no!
Yeah, to
Come
play
on, man. Come on, guys. Chill out, man.
No!
like,
Oh my god!
I mean, not that
I'm
far, but
literally overreacting because there's no more cat!
Alright, chill out.
What is this earth? What is this?
I hope
Tails is the only fox in my house. Tails and Knuckles and Blaze are the only cat, fox, and the echidnas in my house. So don't
I
start with,
can't
oh,
think
I'm
of the
gonna
name of my
not
one
Blaze
friend.
and stuff in
We
my house.
like wine together. We also had this reverse language stuff thing.
Well, I hope you made those artworks that's in your profile. I hope you made those.
yeah.
I hope you made them.
I'm too lazy. I just pulled an image off the internet and recolored it.
Oh, who's got
Where
Piggy?
did you find that?
Go back to Hangout.
You literally stole the pictures on the internet.
Don't
What?
we all? Except
And
cat.
then they
Don't even
uploaded
dare say
to...
dogs are better than cats. Don't even dare.
Hedgehogs are better than cats.
No!
Scratchy
Cat.
Doo says,
Shut
"You're
up!
playing. I'm only getting closer."
Hopefully this. Oh my. Oh my.
Oh my god.
I'm not even gonna.
This world needs to burn. This
I
world
know
needs to
my
burn. I'm
own.
tired of this shit.
Something.
The world needs to burn.
I don't care actually.
Not.
Tigger? Yeah, that's
Rose
me.
Boom said something.
Dead inside. I am.
I'm not making my...
Oh crap.
We don't get caught.
Oh no!
And suddenly Knuckles came in the screen.
What the?
Oh my god.
Oof, Knuckles. Knuckles, daddy.
Well,
Knuckles is a fighter.
I like Sonic kind of chuckle.
He's not far,
About a
but he's
second.
laughing.
everyone's daddy.
Tell.
Who's
Come down.
everyone's daddy right now?
Rest, I'm in
I
the
know I'm weird.
stuff.
I'm staring into your soul
That's for the
for all eternity.
Oh, and I look in. That's about it.
Hey,
You think that kind of stupid and you can go to hell.
after this, we get to watch some spooky videos.
Whose room is Oh, Madison, your room's a mess. Just saying, your room's a mess. That's gotta say. My room's, I don't know.
Guys, it is not legal to shoot kids in Fortnite costumes because they're
Alright,
Battle
guys, chill
Royale.
out. If you
And I
stand
know
up,
I'm
it's
a
hit.
miss, but I don't care. I don't know. Okay.
I got that same Tails toy. Oh my god, I can pull it out right now. Hang on.
Wait, show it off.
Okay, then that's Sonic.
I can't believe there's some people have the same fingers as me. What is this blade? What is it?
Okay, relax. Look, we know you're on steroids, but chill out.
That's
Yeah.
all the cats.
Like what Archer Sonic said.
Oh my god.
Look, dude. Oh, before anyone uses the excuse I'm on steroids to be as fast as I am, it's not steroids. I was born like this.
What is going on right now?
Another cat! Yay!
There are so many things going on right now.
I know.
And I'm scared.
Why are you
Look,
scared?
Scaredy cat!
I'm scared.
You're the scaredy cat, bro!
I'm scared.
You're the
Mom,
scaredy cat!
Mom, can I sleep in your bed tonight?
Mecca, I could use someone like you in this call. I could really use someone like you in this call, Mecca.
I'm scared.
What the hell? You got the same Knuckles speaker!
I'm
Everyone that's
scared.
Hey, what the hell?
Wait, now.
Yeah, I bought it off of
Mecca, I could really use
I'm
someone,
afraid,
I
I'm
could really
scared.
use someone with your personality in this fucking
I'm
chat.
afraid.
Please, come on, please, man.
Especially because we're going to be doing some spooky stuff after
Justin,
this.
why are you scared, bro?
Because we're going to be doing some Ouija board stuff after this.
No, bro!
Ouija board stuff. I've already done every single bit of Ouija board I can think of. There's nothing else I can think of to do for the Ouija board.
Are you sure about that?
Yes, I am sure about that. I've done the Ouija board many times, my friend.
Are you absolutely sure about that?
Yes!
You're looking at the fastest hedgehog alive. I'll have obviously done everything
when
on
I-
the planet.
Are you sure about that?
When I got that, I got like a Super Sonic, a Metal Sonic, a normal Sonic, a Knuckles, and a Tails, and an 80. That's what I got.
I have done the Ouija
I don't
board.
think
You don't
you're
know
sure about
what
that.
I have done.
Are you sure?
I'm Sonic the Hedgehog.
Are you
Nobody
sure
knows what
about
I've done.
that?
I'm sure, Justin!
I bet. How much you want to bet? $1,500.
$1,000 for the bet!
Emobium.
$1,500.
Bless you, me.
Well, to be honest, you're looking at the hero Mobius. I don't have money.
Master Game
Wow,
Bobby,
you're
block.
poor and
Everyone knows who this is!
So yeah,
so you're
Master
poor
Game
and
Bobby.
version of game Sonic. Your ugly version of game Sonic.
Master me, Sonic.
Hey guys, did you know that you can kick someone off a Hangout chat and you're not even the owner?
Yeah.
I feel like someone's gonna take advantage of that just because I said that.
Yeah, don't start kicking people.
Look at his eyes! His eyes!
Yeah, I
Yo,
think he's been
what is happening right now?
I
I
don't
really
know.
have no idea.
I'm scared.
Justin,
I'm
what are you
cold.
scared of?
I'm cold.
And doing some bad stuff.
I'm
Justin,
really
Mommy,
cold.
I'm cool. Can I sleep in your room?
Dude,
Can I
someone
sleep
just
in
said
your
to
room
me,
tonight?
someone just said to me in the live stream chat, yeah?
Could I sleep
You're
in your
messing with
room
my
tonight?
Stop, Archie, where's Sally? Yeah, I don't know where Sally is. She's a princess. She's got stuff to do.
She sucks.
Wait, 5 minutes? Wait, what?
Sally?
Yeah, I'm back, guys.
Yeah, 5 minutes till spooky stuff happens. Oh yeah, spooks. Spooky.
Sally may come for us.
Okay.
Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, please! Bring the holy water. Hold up. Where's my cross?
Yes, it's someone I spoke to when I first joined the call. Hello. Hello, skeleton man.
Oh,
Oh, God. Is that your face?
what are you in that costume and mask?
A cat that has 2 tails. I don't know why.
Stand back, vile fiend.
You guys are completely on drugs. You're freaking on drugs.
I'm safe like what is it? See this?
Oh, God.
That means I'm set, boy. Get it out of this house. Out of this house.
Get out.
Get it out.
Out of this house.
Out of this house.
Out of this house. Out of this house.
Hey, can you be quiet?
Anyone?
Tell me playing Pokemon.
Be gone.
Right.
Justin, get us out of here.
Madison, calm down. Like,
Chill out, chill, bro. Chill down, bro. Chill down, bro.
Freaking loud.
You're okay. You're alright.
My ears hurt a lot. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
take your mod.
Justin.
What?
Justin, get the fuck up! I know we're like cats or something.
Am I the only low-pitched voice in the call, Mecca?
Please,
But I'm scared though.
Please, no!
Please be gentle, Scoob.
But I'm scared though. But I'm scared though. But I'm really scared.
Got mod.
I'm gonna lie to that. I'm just going to go. Oh my god, it's Sonic!
Everybody here.
Oh my god!
Wow. So guys, I actually have this call and my computer on the chat, and I'm watching while we're talking, and we're cringy.
Now let's see what you're
You're cringy.
Freaking weird.
Yes, we are crazy. I didn't say no.
No, I said cringy, not crazy. Don't even talk to me.
I'm not cringy. I'm just sat here talking. I'm just sat
Crazy.
Well,
I got a few explanations. You want to hear one of them?
Go on.
Literally, edging!
I'm scared is one of them. I'm really scared.
I told us
Justin,
we're
what are
singing
you, a
the
scared
music,
cat?
so now we gotta sing the
Well, I
music.
am a cat. I'm scared. So if you just
Bad
put
cow!
two together, if you put them together,
oh crap.
then
He's a scaredy cat!
you could form something.
Guys, we have 1 minute. So
Madison, I'm scared. I'm shaking right now, actually, right now.
Not the spooky stuff!
we have 1 minute till we leave. Guys, we gotta sing the
We're gonna keep talking. It's just that we're not gonna be on the call. We're not gonna be on the chat.
Second to the call is X.
We're gonna keep talking. I think it's just that we're not gonna be in the chat.
Oh my god!
I feel bad for the others in
No!
this hangout.
30 seconds!
Guys,
I'm gonna play 25.
I can show you
Oh
guys.
my god!
It's his mine.
Before this chat ends, I want to thank my fans.
Try it.
I want to thank Chris.
Bro,
I want to
get
thank
that fuck away.
I want to thank everyone in the chat.
Don't try it.
Wow.
Get that cross
Try no
away from me!
spooky stuff.
Get that! Oh my god.
Don't try it.
Don't try it.
I don't want to try.
Wow.
Hello, Crystal, for the one that didn't think I could do my voice.
Oh my god, that's fun. Oh no! Time's up!
Oh, time's up.
I would just join again.
Zero the worst.
Well, we're still talking though.
Right,
Yeah, shit, away from my face. If you still make me punch you in the face.
Look at the light. Light off.
Guys,
Yo, why Sonic? I'm on Xbox.
Guys, I said earlier that we're gonna keep talking. We're just not gonna be on the video. We're not gonna be on the event. We're gonna keep talking though.
Yeah, we're gonna keep
Okay.
talking.
Oh shit.
Yeah, suckers.
What a
We're just
bummer.
gonna put some spooky and scary videos.
Son?
I just realized that Sonic is hearing our
Would you stop being scared? You scaredy cat.
Yeah, scaredy cat. Oh yeah, there it goes. Now show my real face. Whoever just laughed like
Do you
that.
guys want to know how stupid and fast I was to try
listening to our
this
plan.
law? Like
Oh,
faster than
Jesus
thought
Christ,
itself.
don't.
Nope. Cross time.
Nope,
Get it off. Get it off.
Cold the Hedgehog, how did you
Get
know?
it off.
Oh my god, Aiden.
Get it off.
Sonic X Shadow.
What does that say right there? La biba.
No!
Get it off.
Sonic and Shadow together.
Get it off. Now.
Your video sucks.
Okay.
Tina.
Wait.
Tina.
Yeah.
Scary really looks like.
Oh god. No. Oh my god. God, please don't do that. Oh,
Would you shut up?
Technically over.
stop doing that with your eye, please. It's disgusting. I guess
I'll close my own eyes.
Would you stop?
Sorry.
I think it's broken.
Thank you. Oh my god, that was freaking
Shadow has done it.
I'm the
Guys,
only one that
Have you
has
seen this video? I'm literally wearing Sonic
I've exponentially given up on hope itself.
I'm the only one. I feel like I'm the only one besides Archie who's brave enough to show their face. And not
I
hide
can
it.
show my face. I can show my face.
Show your
I
face
don't want
then.
to show my face. I look
Okay, I'll show my face right now.
It's Sonic X on the TV.
ugly. I can't even show my face.
I mean, we're showing it off.
I'm not brave.
It's
Definitely not
Hi
brave.
there. Yeah, showed my face.
The reason I'm not showing my face is because of security reasons.
Archie, show your face.
Security reasons. You saw my wire. You
Yeah.
saw my
Yeah, only one person in this chat knows who I look, what I
Well, you
look
can
like.
say-
I'm just
what-
doing this
what-
for
what-
Show
security
your
reasons.
face,
What next?
everybody. We'll be okay.
Well, not a lot, but yeah.
freaked out by now. I'm a total Sonic the Hedgehog fan, much like everyone else. I like the newer games, but I don't mind playing the classics. I don't think I've ever played glitchy or hacked games before, though I don't think I want to play any after the experience I had. It started on a nice summer afternoon. I was playing Sonic Unleashed. I like how you get to explore the towns in it, until I noticed, out of my peripheral vision, that the mailman had arrived and put something in my mailbox as usual and left. I paused my game to go see what I got in the mail. The only thing in the mailbox was a CD case for computers and a note. I took it inside. I looked at the note first and realized it was from my dear friend Kyle, whom I hadn't heard from in 2 weeks. I know that because I recognized his handwriting. Though what was weird is how it looked. It looked badly written and scratchy and somewhat difficult to read, as if Kyle was having a hard time writing it down and did it in a hurry. This is what he wrote. Tom, I can't take it anymore. I had to get rid of this thing somehow before it was too late, and I was hoping you'd do it for me. I can't do it. He's after me. And if you don't destroy the CD, he'll come after you too. He's too fast for me. Please, Tom, destroy this godforsaken disc before he comes after you too. It's too late for me. Destroy the disc, and you'll destroy him. But do it quick, otherwise he'll catch you. Don't even play the game. It's what he wants. Just destroy it. Please. Signed, Kyle. Well, that was certainly weird. Even though Kyle is my best friend and I hadn't seen him in 2 weeks, I didn't do what he asked me. I didn't think that a simple gaming disc would do anything bad to him. After all, it's just a game, right? Boy, I was wrong about that. Anyway, I looked at the disc and it looks like any ordinary computer CDR disc, except it had black marker on it written Sonic.exe. And it was much unlike Kyle's handwriting, meaning that he must have gotten it from someone else, like a pawn shop or eBay. When I saw Sonic on the writing of the CD, I was actually excited and wanted to play it, since I am a big fan of Sonic. I went up to my room and turned on my computer and put the disc in and installed the game. When the title screen popped up, I noticed that it was the first Sonic game. I was like, awesome, because like I said earlier, I like the classics. The first thing I noticed that was out of place was when I pressed start. There was a split second when I saw the title image turn into something much different. Something that I now consider horrifying, before cutting to black. I remember what the image looked like in that split second before the game cut to black. The sky had darkened, the title emblem was rusted and ruined, and the Sega 1991 was now instead Sega 666, and the water had turned red, like blood, except it looked hyper-realistic. But the freakiest thing that was in that split-second frame was Sonic. His eyes were pitch black and bleeding, with 2 glowing red dots staring right at me, and his smile had stretched wider up to the edge of his face. I was rather disturbed about that image when I saw it, though I figured that it was just a glitch and forgot about it. After it cut to black, it stayed like that for about 10 seconds or so. And then another weird thing happened. The save file select from Sonic the Hedgehog 3 popped up, and I was like, what the hell? What's this doing in the first Sonic game? Anyway, then I noticed something off. The background was the dark, cloudy sky from the Bad Stardust Speedway level from Sonic CD, and there were only 3 save files. The music was that creepy Caverns of Winter music from Earthbound, only it was extended and seemed to have been in reverse. And the image for the save file where you see a preview of the level you're on is just red static for all 3 files. What freaked me out more was the character select. It showed only Tails, Knuckles, and to my surprise, Dr. Robotnik. Now I was sure that something was up. I mean, how can you play as Robotnik in a classic Sonic game, for crying out loud? That's when I realized that this wasn't a glitchy game. It was a hacked game. Yeah, it definitely looked hacked. It was really creepy, but as a smart gamer, I wasn't scared. Or at least I tried not to be. I told myself that it was just a hacked game, and there's nothing wrong with that. Anyway, shaking off the creeped out feeling, I picked file 1 and chose Tails. And when I selected, I got started. The game froze for about 5 seconds, and I heard a creepy, pixelated laugh that sounded an awful lot like that Kefka guy from Final Fantasy, before cutting to black. The screen stayed black for about 10 seconds or more. Then it showed the typical level title thing, except the simplistic shapes that were different shades of red, and the text showed only Hill, Act 1. The screen faded in, and the level title vanished, revealing Tails in the Green Hill Zone from Sonic 1. The music was much different though. It sounded like a peaceful melody in reverse. Anyway, I started playing and had Tails start running like you would in any of the classic Sonic games. What was odd was that, as Tails was running along the level, there was nothing but flat ground and a few trees for 5 minutes. That was when the peaceful music started to lower down into slow, deep tones, very slowly as I kept going. I suddenly saw something, and I stopped to see what it was. It was one of the small animals lying dead on the ground, bleeding. That was when the music started to slow down. Tails had a shocked and saddened look on his face that I never saw him have before. So I had him move along, and he kept that worried look on his face. As he kept moving, I saw more dead animals as Tails moved past them, looking more and more worried as the music lowers and he moves past more dead animals. I was shocked to see how they all died. They looked like somebody killed them in rather gruesome ways. A squirrel was hanged on a tree with what appears to be his entrails hanging out. A bunny had all 4 of his limbs torn off, and a duck had its eyes gouged out and its throat slit. I felt sick to my stomach when I saw this massacre, and apparently so did Tails. After a few more seconds, there were no more animals, and the music seemed to have stopped. I still kept Tails to continue. After a minute passed, after the music stopped, Tails was running up a hill, and then he stopped. It wasn't until I saw why. Sonic was there, on the other side of the screen, with his back against Tails, with his eyes closed. Tails looked happy to see Sonic, but then his smile faltered, obviously noticing that Sonic wasn't responding to him, if not acting as if he was totally oblivious of Tails' presence. Tails walked slowly towards Sonic, and I noticed that I wasn't even moving my keyboard to make him move. So this had been a cutscene. Suddenly, I began to have a growing feeling of dread as Tails walked closer to Sonic to get his attention. I felt that Tails was in danger and something bad was going to happen. I heard faint static growing louder as Tails was but inches away from Sonic and stopped and stuck his hand out to touch him. That foreboding feeling in my gut was growing stronger, and I felt the urge to tell Tails to get away from Sonic as the static grew louder. Suddenly, in a split second, I saw Sonic's eyes open, and they were black with those red, glowing dots. Just like that title image, though there wasn't a smile. When that happened, the screen turned black and the static sound was off. It stayed black for about 7 seconds, and then white text appeared, forming a message saying, "Hello, do you want to play with me?" At this point, I was creeped out. I didn't want to continue the game, but my curiosity got the better of me when I was taken to a different level, with the level title now saying, "Hide and Seek." This time, I was in the Angel Island level from Sonic 3, and it looked like everything was on fire. Tails looked as though he was scared out of his wits at this time. He actually looked at me and made frantic gestures to me, as if he wanted to get out of the area he was in as fast as possible. I was starting to get freaked out by this. I mean, Tails was actually breaking the fourth wall, trying to tell me to get him out of there. So I pressed down on the arrow key as hard as I could and made him run as fast as he could. A pixelated version of that creepy theme when you meet Shadow at the Ark as Robotnik from Sonic Adventure 2 was playing, as I made Tails trek through the desolate forest, trying to help him escape from whatever he was trying to run from. Suddenly, I heard that creepy laugh again, that awful Kefka laugh. Right after, 10 seconds had passed as I helped Tails run through the forest. And then, I started seeing flashes of Sonic popping up everywhere on the screen. Again, with those black and red eyes. The music changed to that suspenseful drowning jingle as I see Sonic behind Tails, slowly gaining up on him, flying. Sonic wasn't running, he was actually flying. The flying pose his sprite was in made him look very similar to Metal Sonic's flying pose in Sonic CD, except it was just Sonic, and he had the black and red eyes again. Only this time, he had the most deranged looking grin on his face. He looked as though he was enjoying the torment he was giving the poor little fox as he gained up on him. Suddenly, when Tails tripped, another cutscene, the music stopped and Sonic vanished. Tails lay there and started crying for 15 seconds. The screen was rather upsetting to watch and I kind of teared up myself. But then Sonic appeared right in front of Tails, and Tails looked up in horror. Blood started to come down those blackened eyes of Sonic's as a grin slowly grew from his face as he looked down at the horrified fox. I could do nothing but watch. Just in a split second, Sonic lunged at Tails right before the screen went black. There was a loud screeching noise that only lasted 5 seconds. The text returned, only this time it said, "You're too slow. Want to try again?" and then that god-awful laugh came with it. I was so shocked by what had happened. Did Sonic murder Tails? No, he couldn't have. He and Tails are supposed to be best friends, right? Why did Sonic do that to him? I shook the shock off as I was brought back to the character select. The save file that had Tails was different. Tails was no longer in the box itself, but in the TV screen itself, which was flickering with that red static. Tails' expression scared me. His eyes were black and bleeding. His orange fur had gone black, and he had an expression of anguish on his face. Trying to ignore it, I picked Knuckles next. The laugh came again, and the screen cut to black again, and stayed there for another 10 seconds. This time the level said, "You can't run." Scared me. His eyes were black and bleeding. His orange fur had gone black, and he had an expression of anguish on his face. Trying to ignore it, I picked Knuckles next. The laugh came again, and the screen cut to black again, and stayed there for another 10 seconds. This time the level said, "You can't run." I was really freaked out by now. I couldn't tell if this was a glitch, or a hack, or some kind of sick, twisted joke, or anything really. But despite my fear of what happened next, I kept playing. The next level looked much different. It had the ground of the Scrap Brain Zone, but the sky background looked like the main menu. It had the dark, reddish, cloudy sky. But it was the music that creeped me out the most. It sounded like Geiger's theme, right after you beat Pokey in Earthbound. I also noticed that Knuckles looked afraid, just like Tails did, though not as much. More rather, he looked a little unnerved. He broke the fourth wall just like Tails, and looked as if he wasn't sure about going on. But I made him move anyway. He ran down the straight pathway in this dark level, and as he did, the screen started to flicker red static a couple times, and then that maddening laugh came again. Then, after a few seconds of running, I noticed several bloodstains on the metallic ground. I felt a growing sense of fear again, thinking something horrible is going to happen to Knuckles. He looked nauseated, walking down this blood-stained road, but I still kept him going. Suddenly, as Knuckles ran, Sonic appeared right in front of him with those black and red eyes, and then red static appeared again. When the static vanished, showing nothing but black screen with text saying, "Found you," I was now scared. Sonic found Knuckles already? What was going on? Anyway, red static came again, and then I was back to the level. Knuckles looked like he was panicking, and Sonic was nowhere to be found. And this time, that high-pitched squealing from the Silent Hill 1's final boss was playing. Was this some kind of boss battle with Sonic? I hoped to God it wasn't, honestly. Suddenly, Sonic appeared right behind Knuckles, in what appeared to be pixelated black smoke. I made Knuckles turn, and then punch Sonic, but Sonic vanished in black pixelated smoke before I could even land a hit. That terrible laugh went off again. Then, Sonic appeared behind Knuckles again, and then I made him punch again, and Sonic vanished again, laughing. Knuckles was panicking even more, and even I felt like I was going crazy. Sonic was practically playing with us. He was playing a sick, twisted little mind game with me and Knuckles. Another cutscene played as Knuckles fell to his knees and clutched his head, sobbing. I felt his agony. Sonic was actually driving us both crazy. And then, in a split second, Sonic lunged at Knuckles, and the screen went black with another distorted screeching noise that lasted for at least 3 seconds. Another message appeared. So many souls to play with, so little time. Would you agree? What the hell? Just what is going on? I started to think Sonic was actually trying to talk to me through the game, but I was too scared to think that. I was brought back to the main menu, and this time, the second file box had Knuckles in the TV screen. His red fur had darkened to a reddish grey, his dreadlocks were dipped with blood, and his eyes were black and bleeding too, and he had a look of sadness on his face. I began to think that those are the actual characters trapped inside those TV screens on the save files. But I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. So I shut off the game and took a break. I took a nap. Wish I hadn't, because then I began to have the most disturbing nightmare. I was in pitch black darkness, though I was under the light given off by a lamp that hung high above my head. I could hear the cries of Knuckles and Tails nearby. They were saying stuff like, "Help us," and "Why did you give us to him?" and "Run away before he gets you too." Their cries died out as I then heard Sonic laugh. His laugh. It sounded a lot like the distorted Kefka laugh. "You're a lot of fun to play with, kid. Just like your friend Kyle, though he didn't last long." I was scared to look around for the voice. "It won't be long now until you join him and all my other friends." I saw him walking towards me, flickering in and out in several directions. "You can't run, kid. You're in my world now, just like the others." When he grabbed me, I saw his bleeding, black and red eyes, grinning face. I woke up with a fright. After a couple of hours, I decided to continue playing the game. I don't know why, but I had to know. I had to figure out why this was happening. So, I turned on the computer, turned on the game, and selected Robotnik next. I still thought that was wacky, playing as Robotnik. But anyway, the level title appeared again, and this time it said ... which I found really freaky. This time, I was in some kind of hallway. didn't really look like it was from any of the classic Sonic games, though it had the pixelated style. The floor was shiny and checkered, the walls were dark, greyish purple, with animated candle lights, and a few dark bloodstains here and there. And there was a dark red curtain hanging above the top part of the screen. Every 12 seconds or so, that red curtain swayed very slowly, but whenever you're playing the game, you can barely see it move. The music was oddly pleasant, a piano playing a rather sad yet peaceful song. But I knew better. This was the song that played in Hill Act 1, only it wasn't in reverse. Robotnik didn't look entirely nervous like Tails and Knuckles did, but he did have a suspicious look on his face, as if he was just a bit paranoid. He did have a little animation when I just left him standing there. He turned his head to the left and then to the right at least twice, and then shrugged at me, as if he had no idea where he was or where he was going. Even though I was scared out of my mind about what was going to happen, I had Robotnik continue onward. He did his usual running animation. You know, when you've beaten him at the end of a classic Sonic game and you chase him. As we continue going through the hallway. Then, I stopped at a long flight of stairs leading downward. Now I was nervous. Even Robotnik seemed unsure of himself, though I pressed onward. As I led Robotnik down the stairs, I noticed that the walls have gotten darker and more reddish. The red torches are now an eerie blue. Then we landed onto another hallway. This one was longer than the last one, or at least it felt like it. And then we headed down another flight of stairs. This one was much longer, took at least 1 full minute. And then I heard that horrid Kefka laugh again, and then the music slowly faded until it was quiet. As it did, the walls turned more dark red, and the torches were a black flame now. When Robotnik landed onto the third hallway, I noticed he now looked really creeped out, though he tried to hide it. I couldn't blame him. I was scared too. Suddenly, Sonic popped right in front of Robotnik, the same way he did Knuckles, and then red static. The red static lasted for about 15 seconds, and then it showed me a most unpleasant image. The image showed a hyper-realistic of Sonic standing in the darkness where you can only see his face, while his head and torso faded into black. And when I say hyper-realistic, I mean like he looked so real, you could actually see the lines in his blue fur. As if you could actually feel the fur if you touched the screen. His face, oh god, he had the most horrifying smile I had ever seen. And that's saying something considering I saw that image at the start of the game. His eyes are wide and black, and once again crying blood, which also looked hyper-realistic. And there were 2 small, glowing red dots in those black eyes, staring right at me, as if staring into my mind. His grin was wide and demonic. It literally stretched to the side of his face like a Cheshire cat, except Sonic had fangs. Very sharp fangs, much like the werehog's teeth, except more vicious looking, somewhat yellowish, and from the look of it, he had stains of blood and small bits of flesh on his lips and fangs, as if he ate some animal. I stared, at that gruesome image for a good 30 seconds, never taking my eyes off it. I felt as if he was actually looking at me, smiling at me. That face. It just took 10 seconds for it to etch itself into my brain for good. Then, the image flickered with red static again 3 times, and on the 3rd time, I heard the Kefka laugh, except this time, it sounded distorted, demonic even. It went back to the image again, except this time, there was the text again, though it was messed up. But it was pretty much one of the most horrifying things I looked at since I had this game. It read, "I am God." It was when I read that image while looking at Sonic when it hit me. I realized right there and then, this Sonic was a monster. A pure evil, sadistic, all-powerful, nightmarish, demented monster. And all of his victims, including Tails, Knuckles, Robotnik, and possibly Kyle, are just his little toys. And the game is the very gateway into his chaotic, nightmarish world, and the very hell his victims are trapped in. Suddenly, in an actual split second, I screamed as Sonic lunged at the screen, screeching loudly with his mouth wide open to an unnatural length, revealing nothing but a literally spiraling abyss of pure darkness before the red static came again, this time much louder and distorted, so loud that it hurt my ears. I yelled and grabbed my ears as the red static screeched for a good 7 seconds. Then, it stopped and showed nothing but black screen. As I sat there, staring at the black screen, one last text came up. "Ready for round 2, Tom?" The Kefka laugh, now sounding more clear, as if Sonic was right behind me, played again 3 times as I looked at that text in shock and confusion. Then I got booted back to the main menu, and this time the 3rd save file had a TV image of Robotnik in the same tormented state as Tails and Knuckles. Robotnik's skin turned a dull grey, his mustache drooped and had blackened. His eyes broke and blood is coming from them, and he had a mere dead-like expression on his face. I looked at Tails, Knuckles, and Robotnik, and I cried a bit. I pitied them for the agony they're going through. They were forever trapped within the game, forever tormented by that horrid hedgehog, and always will be. Then the computer shut itself off. I couldn't turn it back on no matter what I did. I sat there for maybe 25 seconds, horrified by what had just happened. Sonic is the very embodiment of evil. He tortures people who play his game in more ways than one. And then, when he gets bored, he drags you into the game. Literally drags you to hell, where he can play with you always as his toy. I can't get the game out of my computer. I think it's stuck in there. But at least I managed to turn it back on now. After I sat there for 25 seconds, I heard a voice right behind me, like a whisper. "Try to keep this interesting for me, Tom." I turned around to see where the voice came from, and what I saw made me scream. sitting on my bed, staring right at me, was a Sonic plushie, smiling, with bloodstains under its eyes.
After I got home from work, I thought I'd buy a game for my son. He was into the Mario, Sonic, and Donkey Kong type stuff, so I got him a game I didn't think that he'd played yet. It was Sonic R. It was a racing game, as I heard, and at the time it was pretty new. I raced home and gave him the game, kissed my wife on the cheek. I held her, and she was happy for me giving him a present. The excitement filled his eyes, and I could tell he couldn't wait to play it. He went back to his room, and I was right behind him to play it with him. A couple of days passed, and he was almost done with the game, as he said. I watched him beat the last boss, and he roared in excitement as he beat it. I felt good for him, patted his head, and asked him how it was. The peculiar thing was, as I did so, I looked at the credit screen and pointed and said, "What's that?" He said it was the Tails doll. I asked him what the Tails doll was. He just said it was the Tails doll again. I obviously facepalmed and ignored the scenery. I called for him to get in bed, and as soon as he was sleeping, the curiosity got the better of me. I went into his room, very quietly turned the volume down on the TV, and was ready to play some Sonic R. Knowing he already beat the game, I decided to play it through again, watching him from earlier. I noticed you can play as the Tails doll. Knowing that was the main reason I wanted to play the game, I chose him and tagged him up with some of the gang. It was pretty fun, actually, until I tagged him up with Sonic. Right when I hit that button, my whole life changed. My life was in the palm of its hand. It was all calm at first, I must say. The screen just shut off, along with the game system. I let things be and went to bed with my wife. She grasped onto me, and I did to her, falling into a deep sleep. At around 2 a.m., I started hearing thumps on my door. Keeping it shut and knowing my son could get whatever he wanted himself, I just said, "Stop, go back to bed." The thumping kept happening. I got very annoyed and noticed as I got up that there was a little shadow coming from under my door. Nothing at all compared to a regular human-sized shadow. I kind of started freaking out. The word Tails kept popping up in my mind. I started to slowly open the door and heard these very faint words I will never forget again. "You're coming with me. Forever." It was a doll. An evil, blood-covered, possessed little doll. It was from the game. It had to be. It looked just like it. I screamed and waked the whole house as it started to claw at my toes. Blood was all over the floor, and to this day, my feet ache and are sore. It was growling very aggressively, and as my screaming got louder, my wife called the police. It scattered across the floor, running from me. Its screeching was awful, and it left a trail of my blood behind it. It said it has what it needs, knowing it can't finish its job tonight. ever since to this day. I'm afraid to go to sleep at night. My sleeping patterns are scattered apart. I go to sleep around 6 a.m. and wake up around 8 p.m. to start my day. I know this may sound fake, but it isn't. I swear to this very day, I'm shocked to even think about falling asleep at night.
Hey Sonic, how are you liking the new wrist communicators Rotor and I made? Not a half bad job if I say so myself. With all the security features Rotor and I packed in there, stealth missions in Robotropolis will be a breeze from now on. We even added this one feature that can, what are you?
Whoa! Okay, Sonic, you got me. I suppose those dead flickies are stuffed animals, huh? Alright, Sonic, you can get that makeup out of you now. What are you, deaf or stupid? I told you to get it off. Sonic! Either get that off, or I'll kick the spinning balls out of you! Alright, that's it! What the? What the heck happened to your eye?